When you book your next trip, how can you make sure your travel choices actually help the destinations you visit and the locals who live there? From where you stay to how you move around and what you eat, every decision has an impact. I'm back with journalist and travel writer Daniel Maurer, who's sharing his insights on how to be a more responsible traveler without sacrificing the joy of discovery. We're uncovering the top 5 ways that small, thoughtful shifts can make your travels more sustainable and feel more meaningful. So, if you're looking for ways to genuinely support local economies, suss out the most authentic restaurants, and develop a sixth sense when it comes to avoiding tourist traps, Daniel has you covered. How should you book accommodation with the local economy in mind?
I always thought that Airbnb was a very responsible, very traveler and not a tourist option, because of course you're booking it directly from someone who is a local. The money is going to a local. You are staying in a neighborhood that's not necessarily one of the hotel congested neighborhoods where all the tourists are. You're connecting with a local because they can give you suggestions, and you could even make friends with them. But increasingly Airbnb and others, like other similar platforms, have become controversial because many locals and many governments feel that it's raising the price of rents, and forcing people out of the historic centers where Airbnbs are taking over. So I've become more conscious about asking myself, is Airbnb a problem in this city? Is there an overabundance of it? Has the city tried to collect taxes from Airbnb that Airbnb has avoided paying? You just try to educate yourself about the situation.
When you're booking tours and activities, what do you think is the best way to support the local economy?
Book with a local guide instead of an international corporation. Do your research. It's the best advice all around. I mean, when I was in Granada, and Andalusia in Spain is famous for its flamenco, and there was a flamenco cave that Anthony Bourdain had been to, Michelle Obama had been to, and it was literally a cave where only 10 people can sit in there, or maybe 20. And I love the idea of like watching flamenco in a cave, but apparently a lot of other people love that idea because I ended up there with a tour bus. It was not the experience I was looking for. I later read that there was another sort of more local place, a social club that had been open for centuries, but that hadn't been gotten so much hype as this flamenco cave. And, I went there and had a much more authentic experience in a much more local place. And, although it wasn't in a cave and it wasn't as vibey, let's say, the music was incredible, and it raised, the hairs on my arms. So, do your research to make sure that you aren't falling into a tourist trap.
How do you recommend people find restaurants that are run by locals?
I have a few rules about this. One is avoid restaurants that serve both hummus and guacamole, or that have a sort of greatest hits of food from around the world. They have, I don't know, tacos and arepas, I don't know. But or restaurants where the menu is in English. In Barcelona, in fact, there's a law against displaying menus that don't have Catalan on them, and it is because they're trying to preserve their local culture. Usually if the restaurant is buzzing with people talking in the language of that place, it's a good sign that it's a local spot that's owned by locals. And of course, ask people. And do your research.
I always have a lot of luck asking my taxi driver or bus driver on the way in, just like, what place do you like to go? And that usually ends me up somewhere incredible, usually with like his aunt works there and they've owned it for a million years and it's, Tia's recipe. So always ask those folks. And that leads me to my next question. What about transportation? Is there a way to keep those options kind of local?
Transportation, definitely, try to use the bus or the train whenever possible. I actually prefer to walk because even bus travel can be problematic. There's a bus in Barcelona that's goes to Park Güell in the Gaudi's famous park. And so many tourists were using it. It's a very small bus. And so many tourists were using it that the locals couldn't get on. And Barcelona ended up asking Google Maps and Apple Maps to take the bus off of their maps, successfully, so that tourists couldn't find this bus. So, that's a very specific instance, but I would also recommend using apps like BlaBlaCar, which is an app that lets you, it's sort of high-tech hitchhiking. It lets you find people, say if you want to go from Barcelona to Cadaqués, you can find if someone's going there on the day that you want to go there and the time that you want to go there, and you can kind of hitchhike with them. And it's a good option. It's not a local option because it's a French app, and obviously it's not local if you're in Spain, but it does allow you to connect with locals. And a lot of these locals who use this app want company during the car ride, and they want to chat. So it's a good way to meet, make a local friend, and practice your Spanish, for instance, if that's your objective.
Wrapping everything up, is there one small choice that travelers can make to make a difference in their trips?
I think this gets back to the idea that we need to connect with people when we travel. I mean, a lot of the times when we're traveling, we tend to be defensive. We're thinking, I don't want to get ripped off. I don't want to get pickpocketed. I just want to kind of fade into the woodwork because I don't want to look like a tourist, or I don't want anyone to hear my horrible French, in my horrible accent. And so you tend to kind of keep to yourself, be sort of on the defensive. And I think, you should remind yourself that one of the best things about travel is connecting with other people. And it's also a way to give back to the place where you are, because, if you go into a cafe where the waiter is bored that day, it might cheer them up to talk to someone, new. And, I've learned to even kind of, if I'm in a place where I'm self-conscious about my accent, I sort of play that up and try to make fun of myself and be a sort of object of amusement for someone. But, it's just great to connect with people. And I don't think you should forget that that's one of the joys of traveling.
That's one of the things that is so beautiful about travel. It's not just the tours and the scenery and the gram, like you said.
Exactly.
Okay. Daniel Maurer, thank you for joining us. And thank you, our listeners, for being with us. If you're planning a trip, be sure to connect with a AAA travel advisor. Check out AAA.com/travel or visit your local branch. This podcast is a production of Auto Club Enterprises. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. I'm Angie Orth. Thank you for traveling with AAA.